The USS Sea Lion II, a Balao-class submarine, was on her third war patrol in the Pacific. Commissioned in March of 1944, the vessel and her crew had already proven their effectiveness by sinking several Japanese ships off the coasts of China and Korea. At 2:20 a.m. on November 21st, the submarine made radar contact with a Japanese formation moving through the Formosa Strait. The group consisted of 2 cruisers, 2 battleships, and 3 destroyer escorts, all traveling at about 16 knots without zigzagging. Though the crew aboard Sea Lion did not yet know it, they were about to engage Admiral Takeo Kurita's First Strike Force, recently departed from Brunei. Nevertheless, Sea Lion's crew swiftly shifted into battle formation to confront the enemy directly. Their primary target was the battleship Kongo, famously known as the Indestructible Diamond, and one of the most heavily armed and armored ships in the Imperial Navy. Despite the unfavorable odds, the crew of Sea Lion II felt confident in their ability to strike a decisive blow. USS Sea Lion II, designated SS-315, belonged to the United States Navy's Balao-class submarines, an improved version of the earlier Gato class. Named after the Balao, a type of half-beak fish, this class was introduced in early 1943. Sea Lion II was the second American vessel to carry the name, this time honoring the species of large-eared seals native to the Pacific. Her keel was laid down on February 25th by the Electric Boat Company in Groton, Connecticut, and she was launched on October 31st with sponsorship from Vice Admiral Emery Land and his wife. The vessel was officially commissioned 5 months later under the command of Lieutenant Commander Eli T. Reich. The diesel-electric submarine measured 311 feet in length with a beam of 27 feet and a maximum draft of 16 feet. She displaced 1,526 long tons on the surface and 2,463 tons when submerged. Powered by 4 General Motors Model 16-278 AV-16 diesel engines, 4 high-speed GE electric motors, and 2 Sargo batteries, Sea Lion II could reach the speeds of 20.25 knots on the surface and 8.75 knots while submerged. Her operational range exceeded 11,000 nautical miles at speeds over 10 knots. The crew consisted of 10 officers and over 70 enlisted men. The submarine was equipped with 10 21-inch torpedo tubes, 6 forward and 4 aft, carrying a total of 24 torpedoes. She was also outfitted with a 5-inch 25 caliber deck gun, 20mm anti-aircraft guns, and 40mm Bofors guns for defense against aerial threats. Sea Lion II first engaged Japanese vessels on June 23, 1944, after arriving near the Osumi Islands south of Kyushu. Although her first attack was unsuccessful, she quickly maneuvered to evade the enemy's depth charges. Soon after, she joined a group of submarines to hunt Japanese ships off the Korean peninsula. On June 28th, she claimed her first kill, sinking the naval transport Sensei Maru off Tsushima Island. 2 days later, the submarine used her deck guns for the first time, sinking a sampan in the Korean archipelago. She then patrolled near Shanghai, intercepting a convoy south of the Four Sisters Islands on July 6th. At about 4:50 in the morning, the crew launched a torpedo attack that sank the ship Zenyo Maru, scattering the rest of the convoy. At 6 a.m., a Japanese destroyer and aircraft pursued Sea Lion II, which attempted to sink the destroyer with several torpedoes, but was unsuccessful. The pursuit lasted into the evening, but the submarine escaped without damage. On July 11th, the crew celebrated another victory, having sunk 2 freighters, Tsukushima Maru No. 2 and Taiwan Maru No. 2. Sea Lion II embarked on her second war patrol on August 17, 1944, alongside USS Growler in Pomponido. Operating as a wolf pack in the South China Sea, they encountered a Japanese convoy on the night of August 30th. Using surface fire, the submarines heavily damaged the Rikomaru tanker, but were forced to retreat under fire from other ships. Sea Lion II later re-engaged and successfully sank the mine layer Shirataka before returning to Saipan for refueling and resupply. On September 7th, she rejoined her group and approached the Balantang Channel, where they launched a destructive assault on an enemy convoy headed for Formosa. A destroyer, a tanker, and a transport ship were all set ablaze by torpedoes and deck gunfire. Soon afterward, Sea Lion II's group took part in one of the most tragic friendly fire incidents of the war. They sank the Japanese ships Rakuyo Maru and Kachidoki Maru, unaware that both were transporting Allied prisoners of war. Over 2,220 Australian and British POWs were aboard, and it is estimated that more than 1,600 lost their lives in the incident. The crew was devastated upon discovering the mistake. The U.S. Navy submarine surfaced and managed to rescue over 150 Allied prisoners of war. Around 500 other survivors were later picked up by Japanese Navy destroyers and taken to mainland Japan. Sea Lion II then returned to Pearl Harbor and departed a few days later alongside USS Kete, heading into what would become the most dangerous mission of her service. USS Sea Lion II and Kete made their way back to the East China Sea in late October 1944. Though they tracked several convoys, they held off from engaging near the area of Shanghai. At 2:20 a.m. on November 21st, Sea Lion II detected a Japanese formation moving through the Formosa Strait at about 16 knots. Unaware of the full extent of what lay ahead, Sea Lion II and her group were on the verge of confronting Admiral Takeo Kurita's First Strike Force, which had recently escaped an Allied air raid on Brunei. The lead ship in Kurita's fleet was Kongo, meaning Indestructible Diamond, named after Mount Kongo in Japan's Osaka Prefecture. As the lead vessel of the Kongo-class battleships, she was the most active warship in the Imperial Navy. Weighing over 36,600 tons, Kongo was powerfully armed with 8 14-inch main guns arranged in 4 turrets, along with 16 6-inch and 8 3-inch secondary guns, plus 8 21-inch torpedo tubes. Her defenses were formidable, with an armor belt 8 inches thick, a deck nearly 3 inches thick, and turret faces shielded by 9-inch armor plating. Eventually, the convoy made contact with Sea Lion II and the other American submarines. When Sea Lion II's radar picked up the Japanese ships, her crew grasped the magnitude of what they were facing. There were 2 battleships and 2 cruisers at first, then around 2:40 a.m. 3 more ships joined the formation. The U.S. submarines quickly moved into position, with Sea Lion II leading the assault. Admiral Kurita had ordered his ships to maintain a steady speed of over 17 knots without zigzagging, believing they were protected by a minefield stretching from north of Formosa along the Ryukyu Islands to Honshu. It was considered impassable by any American vessel, including submarines. But Sea Lion II and her fellow submarines were undeterred. At about 2:55 a.m., Sea Lion fired 6 torpedoes at the second ship in the Japanese formation. 3 minutes later, she launched another spread of 3 torpedoes at one of the battleships. The crew soon heard 3 explosions from the first salvo and confirmed that they had sunk the destroyer Urakaze. As Sea Lion maneuvered for another strike, the second wave of torpedoes struck a battleship, hitting its armor belt. That ship was Kongo. Remarkably, the sound of the attack was recorded by equipment left on board by a CBS war correspondent. Sea Lion reloaded her torpedo tubes as Kurita's fleet began zigzagging in an attempt to avoid further attacks. Despite these evasive maneuvers, the American submarines stayed on their targets, applying relentless pressure and carefully pursuing the Japanese vessels. The damage to Kongo turned out to be much worse than Sea Lion's crew had initially believed. Although they thought the torpedoes had only dented the battleship's armor, she was in fact taking on water rapidly. By 3:10 a.m., it was clear to Kongo's crew that their ship was doomed. Still, the vessel and the rest of Kurita's formation pressed on, determined to fight to the end. They dropped depth charges and tried every possible method to fend off the submarines. At 4:50 a.m., Kurita's fleet split into 2 groups in an effort to confuse their pursuers. Sea Lion focused on the slower group, which began to fall behind due to Kongo's severe flooding. The battleship's speed continued to drop until she was completely dead in the water. Then, at 5:24 a.m., her magazine exploded and she disappeared beneath the surface. More than 1,200 of her crew were lost, including Vice Admiral Ugaki. Commander Reich of Sea Lion, an Irish Catholic, reportedly shouted, "Oh, the luck of the Irish!" Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out more compelling stories from modern history by subscribing to Dark Seas and the other Dark Documentaries channels. Support us by liking the video and clicking the bell icon to get notified of our latest releases. New